Hello, I'm Dane, and this is Dane Explains. People have known what planets are since prehistory. The word itself means wanderer. This is because, unlike the stars, the planets move around in the sky. At first, there were 6 known, including Earth. With the invention of the telescope, that number jumped to 7, 8, 9, 10, dozens, then 8 again, then 9, then 8 yet again. It seems we can't get our definition of what a planet is straight. So what is a planet really? Let me explain. Before the invention of the telescope, the only planets we were aware of were the ones people could see with their naked eyes. However, even without telescopes, people noticed certain patterns in the distances that occur in the orbits of the planets around the Sun. So much so that Johannes Kepler, in his Mysterium Cosmographicum, placed a planet in between Mars and Jupiter, even though no one could see one with their naked eye. So, when the telescope was invented, that's the first place they started looking. To their surprise, they found several planets in that area. The existence of Uranus and Neptune were also deduced by the orbits of the other planets, and they were also discovered in the early 19th century. Astronomers just kept adding more and more planets as more asteroids were discovered, until they realized there was actually a belt of objects, as they called it, between Mars and Jupiter. So they decided, although made no official declaration, to stop calling these objects planets and just call them asteroids instead, since they were just too small and they were just too many. Although the planet name has still sort of stuck at the International Astronomical Union, or the IAU, because the group there that keeps track of asteroids is called the Minor Planet Center, even though they say the objects they are tracking aren't actually planets. Anyway, moving on, in the late 1800s, all seemed right again, with the minor tweak to the definition of a planet. At this point, we had 8 planets, which is the same 8 we're familiar with today. I'm not going to bother naming them. If you need that, then you should probably be watching a grade school level video on planets. Maybe Baby Shark made one or something. Go! Oh, they did. Never mind, don't torture yourself with that. Starting from the closest to the Sun and going out, the planets are Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Oh yes, this is where we get to that. When we had 9 planets. In the early 20th century, a man named Clyde Tombaugh was searching for the 9th planet, since at that time the orbit of Neptune seemed to be off in just the right way to indicate it was being disturbed by another planet further out. Well, he eventually found what he was looking for, and they called it Pluto. However, Pluto turned out to be small, and eventually astronomers were able to explain away Neptune's orbit by other mechanisms. But Pluto stayed as the 9th and final planet, since even though it was small, it was still much bigger than the largest asteroid, Ceres. This kind of set the standard from then on. Smaller than Pluto? Not a planet. Pluto's size or larger? It's a planet. That's until Doc Brown. No, not that Doc Brown. Dr. Brown the astronomer, although he usually goes by the name Michael Brown. He, Chad Chahil, hopefully I pronounced his name right, and Dave Rabinowitz were searching for Planet 10 beyond Pluto. Like the astronomers in the 19th century, they kept finding lots of objects smaller than Pluto in an area known as the Kuiper Belt, until they discovered this. This is Eris. When it was discovered, it was measured as larger than Pluto, so they either needed to call it Planet 10 or demote Pluto. Just doing the math, they expected to find many more objects that size and larger in the Kuiper Belt. So a year later, the IAU met to discuss and officially defined what a planet was and what it wasn't. At first, it looked like they were going to go with a definition that included basically all round bodies in hydrostatic equilibrium that orbit the Sun, which basically means all objects which are mostly spherical due to their own gravity. That would not only have kept Pluto, it would have promoted the long ago demoted Ceres as well, until at the last second an additional criterion was added. The object must also have cleared its orbit. Since Pluto, Eris, and Ceres all orbit in belts, they haven't cleared their orbits. Therefore, they aren't planets. They created a new category, dwarf planets to put them in, which they said weren't planets. Minor planets, dwarf planets, both not planets. That brings us to today, at least as of when this video is being recorded in 2023. The IAU's decision has been really controversial because it leads to a lot of ambiguity, especially since it specifically refers to objects that orbit the Sun, which means exoplanets around other stars aren't planets, and exoplanets still have no formal definition. Also, two objects that are identical that both orbit the Sun could be a planet or a dwarf planet, depending on where in the solar system you find them. In fact, the aforementioned Michael Brown is still looking beyond Pluto for Planet 9. How ironic, you start looking for more planets, but instead all your effort gets you is losing a planet. Looking at the orbits of the planets we know about allows for 2 more planets beyond Pluto. One of them could be even bigger than Earth. The irony that is that if such a planet was to be found, it would still be considered a dwarf planet, even though it's bigger than the Earth, because it hasn't cleared its orbit. Considering all that, what's a planet? Well, who the heck knows? This obviously needs to be addressed at some point. How about this? Take a page from the definition of a moon. If a moon orbits a non-stellar body in space, and the barycenter of the orbit is within the more massive body, then it's a moon. Basically, that makes all natural bodies that orbit other bodies, even if they are asteroids, moons. What if we applied this to planets? Go back to the original prehistoric definition before people started to tweak it, so grade schoolers could learn all the names of the planets? We just do this with the diagram. Basically, if an object orbits the Sun, a star, or stellar remnant, it's a planet. Then, only teach grade schoolers the major planets. The funny thing is, with names like minor planets and dwarf planets, you can see people already think of things that way. They just went to keep a different definition to artificially lower the number of planets under the assumption that we needed an acronym as long as the Bible to remember all their names. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please press the like button. Subscribe to my channel and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon, link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.